Hi everyone, welcome to the second podcast about building the UK Project Delivery Playbook. For those that don't know me, I'm Pip Morpeth, I'm the CEO of MethodGrid. Luke, do you want to do a short introduction?
Yeah, of course. I'm Luke. I'm one of the consultant team here at MethodGrid.
Cool. So just a bit of a summary information. I'll just make this bigger. What we're trying to do is we are taking, what's the slide? We're taking all of the functional standards, all of the best practice guidance and resources that are produced by the government to help government departments and organisations deliver projects successfully. Taking all of that guidance and translating it into a project delivery playbook. So taking all of that and translating it, being clear on what stages are, what the stage gates are, what all the deliverables that are required for teams to follow. But obviously what we're going to try and do is, as we build the playbook, is merge kind of, yes, these are the things that you need to do, but here's all the knowledge and links to the resources you need. Here's all the tasks and approvals and assurance and controls that you need to demonstrate as you work through the playbook. And potentially we might play around, obviously, with some like video explainers, and we may play around with potentially adding e-learning, potentially resources in the future to kind of make it a really powerful resource. And for those that haven't watched the first podcast, strongly recommend you watch it. But essentially this is so that if we do projects with UK government organisations, that at least we have a template to start from that we can tailor and right size for individual requirements or individual delivery scenarios. But it's just making sure that we do that once, that we have a kind of reusable format and template that we can use for all departments. Okay. So Luke, I'll come back to this one. So I suppose, Luke, the first thing is going to be quite easy. So in this we want to talk about stages and of the life cycle, because we've got used to kind of build those into the playbook. Then we'll look at gates, and then probably the more difficult one, which we find with organizations agreeing them, is what are all the themes? So what are kind of all the verticals that are going to be consistent throughout the life cycle? But you've done most of the hard work on this and done most of the analysis on this. So I wonder if we, guys, in this podcast, we'll switch between obviously some of the slides, but then we'll show you the playbook that we're building, and we might just dive into that a bit more so you can see what it would actually look like and what the experience would be for people using the playbook. So Luke, I suppose over to you really. So your stages, what's the kind of synopsis?
Yeah, so I think first of all, the plan of attack in terms of trying to build out the stages that were applicable was that we wanted to look across the kind of the three main criteria that are listed there, as in the Green Book, the Teal Book, and those government functional standards, so GovS 002, and try and find some stages that were applicable across those. And actually, it was reasonably self-explanatory, was to basically follow what was in the government functional standards as the basis for those 5 stages. It maps quite nicely. Some of the wording has changed in some of the definitions and explanations. And if you go into the kind of deck into more detail, it'll give you a reasoning as to where the basis of that has come from in the Green Book. Where it's not available, I've left it blank, and the same for the Teal Book as well.
So I think I suppose the question I have is, I think when we build this playbook, it will probably work for any kind of generic project, but I can always kind of imagine that potentially some departments may be like, okay, you call it feasibility, we call it startup, or we call it initiation. I suppose what's in a name, I think as long as we have the template based on the UK standard, then when it comes to it and it's kind of, we don't actually call it that, but we still want to be able to demonstrate that we align to all the standards, then at least the playbook has all of the requirements for that stage, regardless of what a end client may want to call it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, if you take the Green Book as an example, finishing a business case isn't just the end of a project, that's essentially the start. And so the justification behind the delivery and an operations phase is, is needed. And so pushing that through into the Teal book and that government functional standard is pretty obvious. And I think also when it comes to, if you're delivering a project within government, if you're only doing those first 3 stages, you can tailor the playbook to make sure that it fits exactly what it is that you want to do for your own project yourself.
Cool. Okay. We'll do gates, and then maybe we show the playbook. So, thoughts on gates? Then I think we'll make that a bit bigger.
Yeah. So again, I've mapped this reasonably. Well, the first 3 are in terms of our gate delivery are matched primarily to the business cases. So there's strategic outline case, the outline business case, and then the full business case across feasibility, appraisal, and the definition. I think that's because the gates are so determined on what you've built from your business case, and passing that gate criteria will be primarily looking at that documentation. However, again, gates and stages have been pretty easy to map, purely because, and as Pip mentioned before, themes are usually where the hard work is. But purely because it follows a pretty standard kind of project lifecycle. In fact, we were just having a conversation before we jumped on here about Gate 0. I don't know if you want to quickly discuss your thoughts on that, but
yeah, no, I think it's probably scope of this playbook, because I think Gate 0, in its definition, I think it feels more program like management related, like for major programs. I think if you look at the copy and the text, it kind of refers to the kind of program mandate, program brief as part of the kind of evidence. I think for the project delivery playbook, it's highly likely that Gate 0 sits outside of the project lifecycle and may sit probably within like a portfolio function that's determining, offer mandate, should we do this project, and recording the decision at a portfolio level. But I think for us, I think what we keep in the playbook is for the projects world is we run through gates 1 to 5. So at least that they are, they're available for tailoring and configuration, but we base that off I think it's the program assurance framework, and then they have the individual guides for each gate, so we can just build the gates in the playbook to kind of reflect the kind of evidence and criteria for that. Maybe we'll show how that works when we try and build it in the playbook.
Yeah,
okay.
I think one of the only things, just very quickly on Gate 0, is just from off the cuff conversations with people working within government project delivery, is just making sure that there is that through line from that kind of program conversation into that project feasibility bit. And if you have that gate just there to follow that, make sure that
it's evidence
different teams. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And maybe we do add Gate 0 then, just as a kind of, it might be outside of the use of the playbook, but at least it's there kind of as a way of evidencing the kind of decision and recording it. Okay. Yeah. That's a good.
Yeah.
Good
exactly.
Idea. Cool. Okay. All right. What's next? Themes. So you've done quite a bit of work on this. I don't think we'll bore them with all of the detail that you have, but so yeah, just let's go through it and what's the kind of findings, understandings of this.
Yeah, so some of the language I think might be very different to what people are familiar with, because I've tried to consolidate it, but maintain at least some familiarity in terms of the wording and the language. So as you can see, pretty much all of this is sat within the Teal book and government project delivery, but it isn't the same language. So we can go, we do have the evidence sat behind this as to why we've made that decision. Some of these have been grouped together, and some of these have been separated. So for example, stakeholder engagement and communications I've chosen to separate just purely based on how they're represented within the Teal book and the government project delivery, but then benefits and value management I've brought together as one work stream. I think right now, this is just kind of our initial thoughts of what, because if you overwhelm people with so many themes, it just becomes a too big a playbook to manage your delivery. And also, if your project has specific things that it's not going to be doing, for example, anything around traceability management or information data management, I wanted to make sure that the groups made sense if you wanted to delete one of those themes,
Okay.
or something that wouldn't apply to you. So that was the kind of foundational logic, whilst also not missing anything that sits within those two, the Teal book and the government project delivery.
I think when we build these themes out, and we see how much detail, like how many deliverables that are required at each stage, it'll be quite useful then to kind of look at the kind of are we overloading the individual with kind of too much information in kind of one intersection between stage and theme. But I think this is perfect though, because I think what it will give people, we're consistent in the definitions of themes. So, if we were to build training about each individual theme, we can do. So how you do risk and issue management, how do you do procurement contract management, it's sensible to see that is a theme that runs throughout the life cycle. Obviously, some are more at certain stages in that life cycle, but again, it's something that can be taken and tailored to fit the organizations, but you're at a very good standing point. And if you're just moving things around, then it's should be still very easy for departments, organizations to evidence traceability to the standards.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of one of the foundational things that we wanted to do with this, right, Pip, was that if you picked up the playbook, you could deliver, across all of these different standards in one go. And so that's ultimately the aspiration is that the full playbook itself is gonna kind of effectively, as close as we can, guarantee that you're going to hit all of those three standards in your delivery.
Yeah, and look, and I think as well, it doesn't say that you can't add themes, because I think when some departments exactly. that do capital project delivery, they'll probably have design management or engineering as a kind of theme as well that they'll need to add in order to kind of make it relevant for the types of projects they deliver. But obviously that's kind of you tailoring the playbook to kind of meet your kind of business model or types of portfolio that you operate or need to deliver. Okay, cool. All right, so let's switch back and let's have a look at the first cut of the playbook. Can I interact with it here? No, I can't have to interact with it here. So let me switch over here. So Luke, so this is just the framework of what we've built. So I think what we found when we build playbooks is obviously we'll have the usual kind of explanation of this playbook, how you use it, some video explainers about it. Normally we put these guidance areas just to explain like what each stage or what each theme is about. So, if people want to know what the feasibility stage is, they can click, they can open it up, and it's kind of giving them a description of like, what is it for? What's the kind of key lessons learned about this stage? And we create just a short video explainer that kind of just people can watch. And then we, kind of what's the key objectives of the stage. Potentially we could say, look, when we tailor it for a particular organization, they can put the experts in there, like the people you can go to speak to find more information. And Luke, we probably build out the kind of reference and resources to kind of links to the standards within back to the kind of resources on the website.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, cool. So we have the kind of stages built, and we've got all of those themes kind of defined and built. And again, we do the kind of same thing for each theme so that we can be clear about, okay, well, what is the purpose of this theme? What's the scope of it? So people have clarity of it. Don't think we built gates yet. So if we were to build gate 1, let's have a quick picture. So I suppose gate 1 review is the business justification review. And I think obviously, Luke, you've done quite a bit of work in the background, which is, and we mentioned it in the first podcast, which actually, when it comes to building this playbook, a lot of the playbook is going to be built using a language model to help kind of go through all the documentation. So I think so far, I think we've just added in the project delivery standards, the green book, and the project assurance framework. So if we were to build gate 1, I think there is a, let's have a quick go at it. So just what do we want to build from an existing template? Select an AI template. I don't really want to look at all of it. So I'm just gonna, can we, which one do we want to use? Yeah, it's that one.
It's, yeah.
Oops. So let's just use the template, and hopefully it's going to go through, and it won't do the gate approvers because I think they'll have to be manually selected, but hopefully, yeah, it'll build the overview of the gate, its objectives, which seem okay, and then it's pulled out the kind of exit criteria questions from the gate, and hopefully, yeah, okay, cool, and it's pulled out the evidence as well that's required for that gateway. Okay, so at least, you know, I mean, we don't have to do that manually, Luke, but you know,
Yeah.
maybe we can add a video and just refine the copy and the context, but at least now we can do that for all of the gates. And then when it comes to tailoring the playbook, the objectives or the exit criteria, you know, you've got, hopefully you've got, you know, 100% of what you need, but then you might add in kind of organizational specific ones, or you might kind of tailor the language so it's more relevant to how you operate or how you perform.
Yeah, and as we kind of build out this, for example, the stage gate section around the evidence, I will do the cross-reference checks to make sure that, you know, that is everything that's required in all of those green teal books, etc. But fundamentally, it usually pulls out exactly what's required.
Cool. Okay. And I suppose we were going to then talk about, Luke, so now that you've got the framework of the playbook agreed, we were going to then look at well, what does an element look like? I mean, is this just easier just to look at an example on the playbook rather than shall I just bring that up?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Okay. So let's have a quick look. So obviously, when we come to kind of building out the playbook, we'll have all of the deliverables that are required at each stage against each theme. But I think you just built out a few of them, haven't you? So strategic outline, business case. Here it is. So yeah, Luke, I mean, I'm happy to kind of walk it through. I think so, and this looks like our kind of standard pro forma, doesn't it, really, for an element within a project delivery playbook. So we don't, you want to kind of purpose for what it's for. There's a short video about what the outline business case is. These are the kind of project control activities. So what we're expecting, like a draft, review, finalize. This one's new, I saw. What's the kind of steps to complete the deliverable? Is that just providing more guidance to people on how you actually do it?
Yeah, it's more in depth essentially. So at a high level, there is only one strategic outline business case, which needs to be drafted, reviewed, and finalized. But underneath that, there are some more complex steps to actually complete that deliverable. So as a user, you can choose whether you want to keep that complexity in it, or you just want the grid there as a high level kind of project control exercise. And an additional thing is it also allows kind of that workflow. So for example, approve and things like that to be a bit more to be assigned instead of approving all of these smaller steps in delivering. You could assign people to you know, this is the reviewer, this is the approver.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got kind of common lessons learnt in there, and then you've put the resources. I think we had a quick conversation about this, didn't we? You said whilst we can upload physical copies of the resources, I think what we should just use references and go back to the like the UK government website, so that if they make changes to it, then we just have to maintain that the links should be persisted in.
Yeah.
Obviously, expert guidance or experts, I think we just leave that open, because when we're building playbooks for departments or for organizations, we can then say, well, look, who are you going to direct people to? Who's the expert in the organization that they can chat and interact with through the playbook to get more support and guidance? And then we've got the we'll come to this. I think we can then put the templates in there that people can use to kind of write them. I think we leave this one here, best practice examples. I think it's probably more for the department or the organization to say, well, look, we've got a couple of good strategic business cases we could put there. But again, that's just helping people understand what good looks like. But I like how you've got the kind of what the quality criteria is for the business case. And here's the kind of deliverable sign off that we've got here. Okay, cool. I think, Luke, one thing for us to look at is, I think, when we look at that strategic outline business case, I think we might have to look at it, and probably for next podcast is okay, can we use AI to draft a strategic outline business case based on a playbook? So if I click on the button here, can AI open this up and then work with me to kind of complete a strategic outline business case? So we might have to look at the template and refine it to make it work with the AI document drafting. But I think if we can show people that, look, you've got all the information, knowledge, and resources to help you do it, you know what you need to do and how to do it. You've got an expert that you can speak to if you need support, and then, okay, here's the template, and if AI can then guide you through completing each section and asking you the information, then I think if we prove that, then I think we've got quite a good playbook to then start building out, and then hopefully that'll give you, I don't know, a couple of weeks to get all of the other kind of deliverables, probably weeks, maybe a month or so, Luke, to get all of the other kind of deliverables that are required at each stage of based on the standards, so we can build the full playbook out, and then we'll know the size of the playbook at that point.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
That sounds like a good plan. Definitely.
Cool. Go back. There we go. Well, it's pretty good, Luke, that we've gone from slides to playbook quite quickly. But yeah, if we can get all the stages done with videos and all the theme definitions done, and then let's get all of the elements built out, like all of the deliverables that are required through the life cycle, then it'll start to take shape. But then I think it'd be great if we could then show probably two modes actually, Luke. Why don't we show in the next one, okay, can it write a strategic outline business case, and then let's say you have to upload it as evidence to your playbook for your individual project. Can AI do a quality check of what you produce? So you might have to write a good, you can use AI to write a good one and use AI to write a bad one, and then see if the AI agent will then kind of give us a score of whether it's conformant and non-conformant. That'd be good. And then I think if the mechanics of that are working, then I think then we can work through and start building out the remaining elements to get a full set of scope on what this playbook will look like.
Yeah,
cool.
Sounds like
all right. That sounds like May's task then is automation of documents and QA checking. I suppose as we wrap it up, and we kind of wanted to keep this one fairly short. Once we've got the playbook built, I think we'll be obviously wanting to talk about it with a few more people. So if you're interested in the project and want to engage with us, want to kind of test it out or pilot it, when it's ready, then please, give us reach out to either myself or Luke on LinkedIn, and be great for you to join the podcast and talk about the project. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for watching, and speak to you soon.
Thank you.